This is Biff Spud of the Global 122 channel and the Guild Peeps of 122, and I have the flu, so if I sound extra nasal today, I'm sorry, I have the flu. But I at least wanted to record this video because I had a little bit of time at home. I'm taking cold medicine, and talk about the Dark Homunculus. Most everybody I've talked to is pretty much like, meh, Dark and Light Homunculus, and honestly, I'm not so sure they're worth all the bother. For me, she was to fill exactly one niche. I don't have Tiana. That's the niche. That's the only real reason I wanted to go through the effort of building another homunculus, is because I needed somebody that could be fairly reliable about stripping off debuffs. I named her Ghetto Tiana because I don't have Tiana. If I had Tiana, I would so not have bothered to build this thing, at least not the way that I did. So your mileage will totally vary. If you have Tiana, or I suppose Gianna, or well, anybody who's better at removing off debuffs, build her some other way. And I've seen some pretty darn good light homunculus used in raids. Dark homunculus, at least the way that I've built her, is a PvP offense only kind of mon, and she's easy to rune. You build her swift and you try to go behind their Chloes. Otherwise, she's not exceptional. She's kind of a little niche monster, which for support I suppose makes sense. I want to show you her skill layout that I went with. There are many other skill sets that you could have gone, but this is mine. And just to show you the pathway that I went towards. Because she's Ghetto Tiana, I went for the strip all the debuffs and stun ability, which forced me down the lower path. That gave me the choice of either extend debuffs and hammer or extend debuffs a lot. And I went for the extend debuffs and hammer, so you should have a little extra ability, and I'll show off what her abilities can do. You can judge for yourself based on the damage on her S2 if it's actually significant. It's pretty much Brandy on crutches, so I'll give you that spoiler for free. You're not going to be dropping 100,000 nukes on things with a lot of debuffs, but you don't need to drop 100,000 nukes. So I don't know, maybe it's Brandy that's actually practical, who knows. Let me talk about her skills. I'll show you the team that I use optimally for her, because it's at least the best team I've come up with for her. And I'll show off to those who are curious how the heck I skilled her up. Hint, it wasn't the Dark Rift, it was the Light Rift, and I switched her at the very end. So I'll show you skills, then PvP, and if you're very interested, how to really ace a lot of crafting mats in the Light Rift. It was actually turned out to be pretty easy. The Dark Homie's first skill is basically awful. It's this weird ghetto combination of the Heart Magician's I steal your attack bar and a Serpent's I knock off a debuff. And it just doesn't work very well without a lot of skill ups, which you can see I lucked out not having. I don't quite get this skill. Howls can do, I get more attack bar when I attack, and that, well, for a Howl, that's pretty decent. Heart Magician's ability of I steal your attack bar doesn't happen very much because it's such a low chance for it to ever matter. And a Serpent's I knock off your debuff is a pretty high chance of them doing it for a good S1 attack. So this weird jack of all trades master of absolutely nothing, it just doesn't seem to work for them in any real way, shape, or form, and there's not much you can do about it. If she was completely skilled up, which I'm not going to invest in Devilmon, she might steal off some debuffs. It really, really rarely happens with 25% chance to each. And I just don't have much nice to say about it. It's not a very handy skill. I suppose, again, if it was max, if I was that unlucky when I was Devilmoning her, then I would see a better benefit, but basically you don't. It's just not a very useful skill. It's obviously something you'll only do if the other skills are on cooldown. Her second skill I picked was Operation Delta Ruin. It's a little bit like Pang, but it comes with a huge nuke on it. You've got two options. One is the more reliable extend debuffs. I went for the less reliable extend debuffs, but hammer them afterwards. I'm showing you clips of, well, basically were failed PvP segments, but at least wanted to show off what it can do. And if it manages to extend debuffs pretty decently, it actually drops a pretty okay hammer. It is the only way she can do damage. Otherwise, she's pretty much full support, and it's not enough damage to be particularly game-changing. You can squish some things with it, and it's very nice. It's primarily useful for extending the debuffs. It's a pretty reliable chance of doing so once. If you wanted to go for the full Pang Monty, go for the other skill, which is a 3-hit. When it's fully skilled, it's got a very high chance of extending debuffs. I went for the single one and the nuke. It seems to work. I may change it at some future point. Her third skill is why I named her Ghetto Tiana. I went for this because I needed it. Will you need it? I don't know. I absolutely needed something to wipe off debuffs fairly reliably. I've got Soha and Aquila, and I really don't like using them very much in PvP. So this is why I built her, and this is exactly why I named her for what she does. If it works, you pretty much are in great shape. If it doesn't work, you lose. And it's really one of those skills that I sure hope that stun lands on the right unit. If it lands on Veladjul, you're in all right shape, but it doesn't always stun him. It's effectively like Aquila or Soha on Despair Runes. The chance to remove the debuffs is 100% to try. Now, you will be affected by resistance. It's not like Tiana. But the stun is Despair. It does absolutely no damage, so it can't glance, it won't knock off sleep if that ever matters, but it also is not any better than stun, and it won't be better than Despair Stun, can't ever be better than Despair Stun. So compared to Pheromos, who is a very reliable CC, she's not, and that's pretty much all I can say about her. It works if you can time things perfectly. She's a little slower than your average Wusa, so that works out great for removing debuffs off your average Wusa. And the stun's gravy. If you can get it to pull off, fantastic. You really, really have to watch things like Veladjul, though, because they're always going to be will. If you luck out to getting the stun, you've got a game changer. If you don't luck out to getting the stun, well, basically you get nothing out of it. It's a good skill. It's a lucky skill because you really have to depend on your speed tuning to their speed tuning and go after their Chloe or Wusa or Veladjul, but still try to cut in before the rest of their team. That doesn't always work, and there have been some disastrous fails that I'll show you. I'll be honest about it. This team doesn't always work, but it can pan out if you're lucky, and that's, I guess, the fun of using this weird mod. So you're seeing my arena team of choice here to use the Dark Homunculus with. I use Alicia because she's a lot better against the big fire bruiser meta that I'm bumping into than Tushin is. I'm getting kind of tired of Tushin. So I thought I'd get a little plucky and try some other strip team to go along with her, because she is pretty mean. This was a tough team to take her against because she's water and I've got Feng Yan and Ritesh to deal with. But this was a really good setup for the Dark Homunculus to do. If she manages to kill something, which unfortunately Theo doesn't count, she gets a second turn. So she can do a lot of damage very quickly. Now I'm just sort of reliant on, well, how much damage can I do to keep presumably violent Wusa and, of course, Ritesh and Feng Yan down without killing off all of my team. You can do a lot of damage with Alicia, and that's great. The video's not really about her. She could also be replaced with Julie just about as easily, so we don't have to use her. Now the problem is I'm using a main water DPS against two really mean, really heavy tanks, and this is going to be a difficult fight for me at this point. But this is actually one of the main reasons I do actually kind of like Dark Homunculus' second skill. I'm going to try to get these debuffs off. Nice thing about using her S2 or S3 as opposed to something like Soha or Aquila, it doesn't actually hit, so it won't trigger Feng Yan's passive and speed up his attack bar. At this point, it's just a matter of trying to kill off Ritesh. He's wind, I'm using water, it's going to have a hard time nuking him, and basically I just want to try to keep him from going if at all possible. That's going to be difficult given my team. But nice thing about using this is occasionally Alicia can clobber a wind mon. So I got ballsy and I thought I'd try this one twice. Try not to go after Feng Yan's too much without a better team than this. This is one of the glorious fails I can show off to you. It is going to be a bruiser slugfest to try to kill off that Feng Yan. But again, it does show off the Dark Homunculus' skills. So yes, it's a kind of a fail. It didn't cleave nearly as well as I would have thought. I've got a great setup here for Alicia to finish off the team, except she's been hit with glancing debuff, and she won't actually manage to kill anybody. So she's got about one last gasp in her. Fortunately, she's fast. And I lucked out to keep Chloe slowed down. The S1 off the Homunculus actually panned out. And now that she's not glancing, she can murder everybody but Feng Yan. And that's the problem, because now I have to kill Feng Yan, and he very slowly heals himself. I've got Varad, Mantura, and the Dark Homunculus, none of which are particularly good at doing solid damage to him. So I'll try to keep him slowed down as much as I can, but he's about to kill off my main crowd control, and that's Varad, because he's got his revenge buff on, and he's not going to take too much trouble from Varad. This is the video I can show you that the Dark Homunculus' I died skill actually made a difference, but it mostly doesn't. I'm basically going to try to kill him with a dot. That's all I've got left. So I can extend the dot and do a little bit more damage with him. Unfortunately, he can clear it. I can knock off his buffs, so that's good without speeding up his attack bar. The only reason I win this fight is because she's fast. She actually ends up murdering, or he ends up murdering her. She's going to waste her first of her 2 resurrection turns doing absolutely nothing, because that doesn't do any damage, and only because I crit did I win that fight. So Dark Homunculus doing damage isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is the perfect setup. I get Villadual. I can totally knock his attack bars back, except for the Sea Emperors who are going to eat my lunch. It was a good setup, but I even get crowd controlled the entire team by Fire Sea Emperor. They are so hacks. I would like one, if I could have one, please. Yeah, I'm boned. Here goes the entire team. Glorious fail. I had Villadual. Give me something. I had Villadual. Nope. Yeah, I can't even manage to kill off their Enable. She's going to cleanse the team. Vlad was going to cleanse the team. Yeah, we're out of here. We got nothing. But it shows off that, yeah, this team doesn't always work because I did not crowd control the entire team. This one works, though. I won't show you the whole thing because it's kind of boring, but I did manage to at least knock all the buffs off, and now I can crowd control them to death, except I've got my skills knocked back. So it's slower. I basically nickel and dime them to death. That's the only thing I've got going for this fight because I lost my main source of damage. But you can see you can do some pretty good damage with her S2. This is generally speaking how I like the fight. Jemire is less of a trouble here because I built my homunculus so fast. She'll get her cooldown back on her cleanse, and I managed to stun the one mon that particularly mattered, so that was nice. Pretty much knock on as many debuffs as you can, blow things all to hell with Alicia. She kills something, she gets a second turn. Luckily I don't get stunned by Samath because almost always you get stunned with Samath, and boom. It's pretty much all over at this point. You kind of get the idea. If it works perfectly, you cut after their major buffer. This does not work too well if they have some sort of attack bar booster. Villadual is really tricky if you allow him to go first. It's one of those mobs you probably shouldn't allow to go first. But Chloe, not much of a trouble. Chloe's kind of coming back. I don't really understand why. But it's nice now that I have a second option besides outspeeding Chloe. This is kind of fun of, oh, is that your buff? Oh, I'm so sorry. But it's chancy, of course. It's fun. Is it the best team ever? No. If I had Tiana, is it the best team ever? Absolutely no. But it's what I've got, and in the end, it pans out. It gives me an extra team variety, which, you know, I like variety. It's kind of fun to play with. I promised I'd finish off by showing up how to stomp on Light Raid to get shinies so that you can make your homunculus. And whether or not you make them light or dark, this is an easy raid to farm, a lot easier than Dark Rift was. I'm not going to show you me autoing it. I'm going to show you the best case scenario for manual. And I am using 2 very nice monsters in the front row, but I want you to look at the back row. That's 3 3-star dark mons. The change to Rift, where you get an elemental advantage and disadvantage, actually made this such a good YOLO fight for little squishy mons like Jamie and Shumar, who you might know I've made videos about, and Halea, who I won't, because this is really the only use I ever find for Halea anymore. But with all 3 of them going ham sandwich on this guy, he drops fast. They're all good shield poppers. Particularly Halea, she's got brand and defense break for the groggy phase, and just pounds on his shield. She can actually pop it almost all by herself if she uses her S3 on the shield, and the other mons aren't so bad at doing it either. I think you'll get the idea. I'm manualing the heck out of this guy just to show off the sheer amount of damage you can do, but I was able to pull off a good double or 3S rating on auto, more or less a lot of the time. I won't promise you all of the time, but it was enough to farm up the skills. If you've got good beefy front row mons that do single hits, so much the better. And that's what Leica is doing here. Shumar as well. Don't be too shy about multi-hit monsters. Yes, I know, the shield nerfs their damage, so theoretically Feng Yan and Yen and Jamie are bad choices because they do multi-hits and they won't be able to burst through the shield. But if you can take that shield down fast enough, so you've got a couple of meaty hitters like Shumar and Leica and Halea, then your multi-hit mons can stomp on him when his shield is down. And certainly during the groggy phase, the shield is down too. I wouldn't go overly crazy. Don't build a full Necro team for this one because it's not a good idea. But at least in practical purposes, a little mix of single hit and multi-hit mons, of course on violent, because why not? You really get the best of both worlds for going YOLO on this guy. It is how I built the homunculus that I've got. The other riffs didn't change overly much, but light sure did. If you've watched a couple of my videos, particularly the Shaffron video, I said, light beats kind of sucks and it's hard for me to get better than the A. Well, that has changed, and if I can show off a couple of tips as well as the homunculus, so much the better. If you were at all considering farming for the homunculus' skills, make them light. You can change them later, or you can leave them light if you already have Tiana, and I hate you if you already have Tiana. But you can exploit the heck out of this thing as much as you can. Look, I'm using weenie little monsters in the back. Yen, I do love. She's my favorite Rakasha. I will get around to making that video for her. But I mean, look at these guys. They're just pounding on him, and that shield drops very, very rapidly. I'll leave the rest of the video for you to watch. I think you get the idea. I don't know how reasonable my yattering on about this thing when I'm still suffering from the flu is a good idea for anybody. But anyway, this is Biffle Spud of Peeps of 122. I hope you find this video useful, and if I step on your team, it's because you've got a Chloe, and I'm really, really liking picking on Chloe as she surfaces back as the meta again these days. So thank you. Thank you for participating in this video if I've beaten up on your team.